Okay, it looks like we're live. Hey everybody, tuning in. We're gonna have it open for call-ins. Today's topic is gonna be about, well, I mean, we could pretty much take it wherever it goes, but let me introduce Chris. She's been a guest before. I think it was episode 96, but regardless, I'll put a link and everything. Chris is a psychic medium that specializes in old souls and healing from narcissistic abuse. Chris also has several workshops and mentorship programs, plus provides various services, including readings and various modalities of healing. She's also an author. She wrote the book An Old Soul's Journey. Have you wrote any other books since, or?
No, not
Okay.
since, but I know some are in the works.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was telling you before, like, even before when we had spoken about, narcissism and all that, like I wasn't as experienced with the topic. So now even going back and listening, just the so much valuable advice and information, right? So much valuable information you gave about that now I'm like, oh wow, like it's mind blowing. So I'll definitely put a link to that episode. But also, I wanted to say that I think after, because we did the interview and a live, and after I think the live, I asked you about something and you helped me with that. And you were able to tap into something, and right after you told me about that, I went outside and like this white dove flew, and it was like very freeing, right? It was
Mm.
like that brought closure to something that I needed help with. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm
I'm
glad
sure.
to hear that.
Yeah, I'm sure I posted something about it, but I just wanted to make sure to voice my appreciation that, right. And it was funny because yesterday I saw a white dove. That's funny that we're doing. It just clicked right
Wow.
now. Yeah, it
Look at
was
that.
all, yeah, all the birds around there were dark, and there was just this white dove, and it kept lifting its wings at me, and I was looking at it like, you doing that at me? And then it was like that. And I was like, all right. And then it flew in the direction I was going. So I was like, all right, funny little, like, it was like trying to tell me, like, you see, like, kind of, I was like, all right, fine. The little white dove. So that was funny.
Well,
Um,
considering our topic, I mean, that's strong symbolism because anyone that's dealt with any kind of narcissistic abuse, the one thing they ultimately are striving for is peace. And that's what the white
mm,
dove stands for.
absolutely. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm glad I brought it up. That's
Yeah,
funny that,
it's a good
that,
one.
um, it popped in my head. So yeah, I'll be, again, if you're just tuning in, if anyone's tuning in, um, we're gonna have a talk about, I mean, really anything, right? You can feel free. Like I said, Chris is a psychic medium as well. We're gonna cover the topic of narcissistic wounds, right? Narcissistic wounds. But feel free to call in, or if you have any questions, hop in the chat, right? So we had talked about like the wounds, or why we find what makes us, I guess, what connects us in that way, right? To find partners that are, you know, that have that kind of energy, I guess would be a way to say it.
Yeah, because I look at people's energy, and when we hear the term like attracts like, I think it's almost insulting to
Mm,
someone that has dealt with narcissistic abuse because they look, feel, remember everything they experienced in that type of relationship. And they look at themselves and they question, am I really like that? So that is not where like attracts like. You are not the same person. In some cases, you might be. So I'll just
hmm
put that as a side as a possibility. But really, what's happening is you have similar wounds.
mm,
And where I most often will see that is in the solar plexus chakra. So whether someone has dealt with narcissistic abuse, experienced narcissistic abuse, or they have lashed out with narcissistic abuse, the one common thing I see in both of those kinds of people are a very expanded solar plexus chakra.
wow.
So they the person that is the recipient of that type of behavior is often highly intuitive. Well, that's why a lot of people will come into that empath narcissism connection. But I always say it's a little deeper than that. It's an old soul narcissism connection because every empath is an old soul, but not every old soul is an empath.
Mm,
So having that highly intuitive sense has to come from that solar plexus chakra. But the wound is so similar whether you're the narcissist or the recipient of narcissistic behavior. This is also why people raised in narcissistic environments essentially can turn into a narcissist and have a high probability of doing so. It's a generational pattern. And it takes someone to break it. And it's usually the old soul in the family that is going to identify as the black sheep, as the cycle breaker, as the weirdo, the one that stands out, whatever the case may be. But they don't feel like they fit because energetically, they kind of don't. So
Mm.
they're so in tune, so highly sensitive, so highly aware of what's going on, and they start calling it out very young. And they essentially serve as a mirror to a narcissistic parent. And nobody triggers a narcissistic parent like an old soul child because it is
Mm.
the mirror of everything they don't want to see about themselves that makes them a horrible person or a terrible parent. So it really starts, though, at that solar plexus area.
Wow. And wow. Yeah, yeah, because that was my area most affected when I was dealing with I don't even know when it started, right? I think it was like yeah, it was a while back, right? But I remember feeling the solar plexus kind of out of whack.
Yeah,
So I
it
know the
would
solar
be.
plexus has to do, for those that don't know about the chakras, it's yellow, right? It's in
Yes.
this area like right under the heart,
Yep.
more or less,
Yep. Your
right?
higher gut.
Yeah, the higher gut. There was a time, so oftentimes it's called like standing in your truth, right?
Yes.
Um, so I remember once there was a decision that made no sense logically, but I made it, and it was like my solar plexus started vibrating, right?
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
had to do with even money, right? It was like I didn't take this job that, yeah, it was good money, but it didn't resonate with me. It felt almost like, nah, it doesn't, I don't like it, right? It doesn't feel right. It's not something. So in a way, I guess that just me standing in who I am, knowing, nah, I don't like this, you know, and turning it down, regardless of the money, it started vibrating. And I was like, oh, wow, like I guess I made the right choice.
Yes.
Yeah. So it
Yes.
was strange. So let's unpack that a little. What about, I guess, dealing with narcissism affects you standing in your truth? Is
It
it that?
does.
Okay, so and it's more like on the empath side, right? Like the person receiving the abuse, right? That.
Whoever's receiving the abuse, whether they're an empath or not, but yeah, it affects your truth because your solar plexus chakra is also your chakra of personal power. So
Mm,
what happens is your personal power is broken down over this type of abuse. This is why people in these type of relationships are often diagnosed with complex PTSD because
ah,
they've had multiple occasions of many times, many years even of this type of abuse. So it affects that chakra, hence that wound becoming so large. That's why if you've been raised in such an environment, you're very likely to attract a narcissistic partner growing up. Maybe not the same type
mm-hmm,
of parent you once had. Usually, what happens is you're filling a void. So, whatever partner you then choose, if you've been raised in a narcissistic environment, they're filling a void of what you didn't have in a parent growing up. So, if you say had a dad that wasn't present, you might look for someone that's more present,
mm,
but they will also have similar wounds. So at first, it'll be like, oh, this is great. This person's wonderful. That's why like all the mask is on and they are wonderful and you see all the amazing aspects. But once that mask comes off and you start seeing the wounds, and narcissists always act from the wounds. We all have wounds,
mm-hmm,
but a narcissist lives in victimhood where they are constantly acting and behaving from those wounds. And they also have stifled growth. They, at one point in time, would have just stopped emotionally developing. And that is why so many of them are known for very emotional type of behaviors and also extremely immature type of behaviors.
wow. Okay. um, Let me ask you this: do narcissists ever realize that they're a like? because I even, I went down the narcissist rabbit hole, and it's almost like a warning to never tell them that they're a
Hmm.
narcissist, right?
Yeah, I
So,
don't recommend that.
okay, but yeah, so do they ever? So then, how do they ever, like? Is there any way for them to come out of that? Like, what's the, or is it
Well,
like, for example, like a person that's receiving narcissistic abuse, like the advice would be to just distance yourself, right?
as best as you can. If you're raised in that type of environment, though, that's really
Mm.
that's challenging. So it really is going to depend on the environment you're in. And, also understanding that narcissism is a spectrum. So depending on where the narcissist is residing on that spectrum, like a overt narcissist can actually be very abusive and very dangerous. So that's the type of person you even, a lot of people like to say, oh, you have to have boundaries. You have to have boundaries. If you have an overt narcissist in your life, a boundary could be very dangerous. So
Mm.
that's why I'm always very careful about telling people about boundaries because I don't believe right out of the gate everyone needs to start setting boundaries. Because if you were comfortable setting boundaries, you would have done it already. So there's something already with the individual that is dealing with the narcissistic abuse that's not comfortable setting the boundary because the boundary doesn't feel safe to them. So if it
Ah.
doesn't feel safe to us to set, it's not going to be successful. And then if you have an overt narcissist that's violent, then you're really going to put yourself in a situation where you're really not safe.
Mm.
So there's so many levels to it, but like I said, understanding the fact that it's a spectrum is huge because it's also why it's really hard to diagnose. Even psychiatrists and psychologists will say that narcissistic personality disorders are one of the toughest things for them to diagnose because very rarely is the narcissist walking into their office. It's everyone that has been subjected to that kind of abuse that walks
Wow.
into the office. So narcissists ultimately struggle with self-reflection. They do not like to be told they have in any way done anything wrong, whether you're overt, covert, any type of criticism, they will react in a negative manner. A
Mm.
covert narcissist will say something like, I'm sorry I failed you. I'm sorry I'm such a terrible mother. That kind of stuff. Those manipulative kind of statements to make you feel bad for hurting their feelings. So it's
Mm.
not a safe conversation to have. Whereas an overt narcissist will kind of flip out. They might throw things, they might just yell, scream, and they might become violent. It really depends. So, like I said, you're dealing with a spectrum. That's why you never quite have the same type of narcissist, but they all seem to share the same playbook because so many of us
Mm.
that have dealt with this have very similar stories about things we've experienced with the gaslighting, with the control, with the manipulation. And it's kind of mind-boggling. So I almost make a joke of it sometimes, almost because sometimes you just have to laugh at it because it's just so surreal. But it's like I'll say things like, "Oh, I think that's in chapter 5 of the Narcissistic Handbook that they pull from."
Mm.
It's like I said, it's mind-blowing sometimes.
So, if you want to touch a little bit on, so overt narcissism will be very in your face, basically. So, if you
Yes.
want to talk a little bit about covert narcissism.
Covert narcissism pretty much lives in the land of manipulation.
Mm.
They also are the martyr syndrome, the victim stance. Woe is me. I had such a tough life, and they're a little harder to see because
Mm.
a covert narcissist has more hidden behaviors,
Mm.
and manipulation is very subtle. It's quiet, and it's more of a slow burn.
Mm.
Overt narcissism is so in your face. It's very obvious. It's very there that covert narcissism can even be looked at as kind and gentle at times.
Ah.
Because if you're used to both, and I am because I was raised by both, I always saw my dad as the one that was scary because he was physically very violent and I was
Mm.
terrified and I was hit constantly and not beyond just a spanking. My mother hit me too, but not like my dad. I really was scared for my safety when it came to my father.
Ah.
And he would have scoffed at me. Like he'd scoff at me if he heard me saying this right now and or call me too sensitive or call me a problem that he had to do it to put me in line, yada yada. My mother on the hand is the covert manipulative. So She would more give the silent treatment for
Mm,
control. Covert narcissism is all about the silent treatment. If you do something and say something I don't like, I'm going to ignore you
mm,
until you apologize to me, even
wow.
if I was the one to do something wrong to hurt you. So my mother was classic with that. And then she would weaponize my father. So if I didn't apologize to her within a certain amount of time, she would tell on me, tell my dad, and he would beat the crap out of me.
Oh, wow.
So it was a very tumultuous upbringing, but it made me an expert in narcissism because wow, do they have a certain kind of energy. But it took me a very long time to recognize that my mother was a narcissist because she wasn't as violent as my father. So I would have
Mm,
looked at her as loving. But what I didn't recognize is that was very strong enmeshment in my family. And a lot of people are familiar with the terms enmeshment, but on an energetic level, you're literally still interwoven with energetic cords with your parents in a way that you shouldn't be after you're in your 20s,
mm,
because that is supposed to have a natural kind of sever. And when it doesn't, that enmeshment happens. So I see this a lot in clients when they say things like, oh, my mother is my best friend. That's a red flag for me because, especially if they're married,
mm,
because if you're married and you're saying your mother is your best friend, you're not going to have a healthy marriage. Your spouse
mm,
should be your best friend, not your mother. So
mm.
that means mom still has some interwoven enmeshment energy.
Wow. How interesting. Let me see. For example, let's say you use the term best friend, right?
Yeah.
So you've been also in because I know you grew up with narcissistic parents, right?
Yes.
But you've also been in a relationship with someone you would consider narcissistic or no?
Um, in ways, sure. But I've been married a really long time.
Okay.
So we both have narcissistic parents,
Mm,
and we both have had to kind of navigate that because my parents had more of a violence safety issue. They were the ones that stood out.
mm,
Whereas my husband's parents were a little quieter methods, but usually very insulting. Like my father-in-law, for example, would be very critical, say something in a, let's just say, a joking manner. And if you didn't laugh, then you were a problem. If you took
no.
offense, you were a problem. So he would then get angry if you got mad at him saying something to him that wasn't, him saying something and you didn't like it. So he would just like make these little pokes and jabs. It was just kind of mean. It was low key bullying. And instead of apologizing, he'd be mad. And so,
No.
it was really kind of challenging for my husband because there he is having to like defend his wife because his father would say something nasty and I would hurt my feelings. My my one of the ones that really stand out is he said to me, my husband was a fun, happy-go-lucky kind of kid until he met me.
Wow.
And so I'm very happy and grateful that in the moment, when we have those moments and we say we wish we would have said something, I said what I wanted to say in the moment, and I'm still very grateful for it because my husband and I met when we were 18, and
Oh.
we've been together since we were 19.
Mm,
So when my father-in-law said that to me, and he said it to me like well into our marriage. It was probably like, gosh, probably like 3 years ago, I want to say, maybe less. But I said to him, I said, it's very interesting you would say something like that because you are remembering your son, my husband, as a child. And you remember a happy, fun kid, but you're not accepting the man he's become. Because in that time that I've known him, he's graduated college, he got a master's degree, he earned a CPA. We've been raising a family. We've had 4 beautiful children. I said, so you want to lash out at me over the man he's become because you cannot accept the fact that he grew up. And he did not like that, but I am
ah,
still very grateful I said it because that was such a nasty comment. And that was the comment that kind of did it for my husband. Like, how dare you say that to my wife?
mm. Yeah, that's funny that your response, you went deep with it.
I did. Because I didn't go to anger. I think I've dealt with this for so long. I didn't go to anger. I mean, sure, it hurt because that's just mean. There's nothing good could come of saying something like that to a person. There's nothing constructive about that. And
Mm,
so I just kind of had that pause. And that moment, that pause was like, I can't believe he just said that. But then I was like, okay, he's still seeing my husband as a child. So I was able to see that very clearly. And but I don't always have those great moments of clarity in the moment. But that one I'm pretty proud of.
mm. So let me ask you that. So is that a narcissistic trait? Like, for example, that making offensive jokes, and then if you
Yeah.
say, hey, if you set a boundary and you're like, you know what, I didn't like that, and then they lash out,
Yep.
that's
That's
okay.
classic
Wow.
narcissism because it's
Okay.
immature.
Mm,
It's, we don't as people get to dictate how others feel. So we may say something in jest, we may say something not intending to be mean, but if someone receives it poorly, that's on us to try and make that better. And
mm,
that's on us to say, gosh, I'm really sorry. I did not mean that. That was not my intention.
mm,
Right? That's being a good human being. A narcissist can't do that.
mm,
They have, because that's self-reflecting of like, wow, maybe I could have done better there. Maybe I could have been nicer. Maybe, again, any kind of self-reflection, like, ooh, you know, but they often will say things like, oh, it was just a joke. But if the recipient is not laughing, it's no longer a joke. I mean, let's look at comedians. Why so many comedians are self-depreciating in their jokes? Because they want to make it funny in the sense about them and not making it funny by making fun of other people.
mm,
And that's a pretty nice way to go about comedy, I feel, because if the other people or person, if they're not laughing, you haven't accomplished any goal in a joke. It's not funny. And when we hurt feelings, and then, people, again, that's where we talk about, oh, so sensitive. This generation is so sensitive. All of these generations are so sensitive. No, I would say generations are becoming more accountable for behaviors and for treatment. We live in a world that already has a lot of conflict. So if we can just start in our everyday interactions to be kinder and to do better, I think we're doing a good thing for the world. So to look at it as like, oh, you're too sensitive and you're not tough enough. The worst things that have ever been said to me in my life have been said to me by my own parents with my in-laws as a backup.
mm,
And I can't say that all the strength it gave me necessarily made me a great person. It made me feel unloved by parents. So that kind of treatment didn't prepare me for the world. It made me terrified of it, of how awful the world must be, how terrible people must be. But as I got into the world, I realized the world is amazing.
mm.
I was just raised by such broken people. And in my like attracts like, I married into a family that was equally as broken and not accepting of me as a child in their family.
Wow. Yeah. Let me because you brought something up about that, like yeah, if you can't take it, you must be too sensitive or this and that. So, for example, as a man, that's like, so it's different, right? Dealing with a narcissist as a woman to like a man, for example. Like if you set a boundary, then that's one of the tactics most likely used, right? Like, oh, you're being too sensitive or something. So even myself, having dealt with situations that were, like, I mean, I'm not diagnosing that the person was a narcissist, but when I've dealt with those situations, even me, right? My instinct was like, well, why am I being, yeah, maybe, if someone made a joke and I'm not, I don't think I set a boundary like, hey, I don't like that. I don't play like that. Don't talk to me like that. And they made it feel like I was, yeah. And to me in my head, I was like, oh shoot, maybe I need to have, because I'm no longer there, right? So I've outgrown the person that would have accepted that kind of
Yeah.
talk, right?
Mhm.
By a long like time ago. So I understood that. And in my head, I try to say, like, well, I get that I would have been okay with that back, like, many years ago. But I'm no longer there now. But okay, maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe Maybe I need to man up. Maybe I need to toughen up. Maybe I need to have thicker skin. So is that a tactic that like a female narcissist would use, right? Like kind of like, oh well, you know, you're being
Yeah.
too sensitive. You should be able to take my jokes. If not, then it's your problem, not mine, kind of
Yeah. I
situation.
mean, really, any narcissist does that.
Mm.
Um, I've seen it on both sides. I think men
Mm.
are more predisposed to taking that one to heart. Not that women don't, but we have kind of a preconceived notion on what makes a man masculine, and we don't associate sensitivity with that. It's starting to shift a bit, I feel, but for the most part, we're still in a patriarchal society where, men are manly, and then we have the term toxic masculinity where I feel that's kind of going on a whole other tangent. But yeah, I think it can be a little challenging for a man to be called sensitive in a way that's deemed as negative. Because for a man to be called sensitive in a way as positive is saying like you're sensitive to emotions, you're sensitive to animals, you're kind, you're caring, you know. But as human beings, from an energetic standpoint, we all have a masculine and a feminine side
Mm-hmm.
in our energy. And if there's not balance in that, to at least to the best of our ability, I don't think there's a perfect balance, but a balance of a sort, you're gonna feel that in some way. So a man who is too hard in his masculine is not going to have the sensitivity he needs to be balanced. Same as a woman that's too much in her feminine. She's not going to have a lot of strength that she needs. So the balance is important no matter your gender.
Mm. Absolutely. Um, what was I? There was something I completely so good. Maybe I wasn't supposed to bring that up, but let me. Wow. Okay. So now, for example, because of that, like, so you've had clients obviously that were males that dealt with like,
Yeah.
female narcissists, right?
Yes.
Um, so what's some of the things? Because when I went down the rabbit hole, it's like it can leave a lasting impression, right? And for me, luckily, I was shown a lot of things spiritually, right? So in case you're watching this and you didn't think all this stuff is tied into something spiritual, I was shown in a
Always
very
is.
spiritual way. I was seeing like entities attached to it. I was seeing
Mm-hmm. Yep.
this energy
Yep.
that
A lot of
was,
demons with narcissists.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my, okay. Well, I got chills all the way down. So,
Yeah.
okay, I'll open that up because I know
Yeah,
like,
no, please do. It's a good one. I literally just had a client in my office 2 days ago, and I felt the dark entity. It wasn't attached to him, but it was attached to his father, and he was a
mm,
little confused by that at first. So I started explaining some of the behaviors his father probably exhibited, and he's like, "Yeah, absolutely, that's my dad." I'm like, that's
wow.
the entity attachment, and it's been there his whole life, and it's been in the family for a long time.
Wow. Yeah. So and it's funny because how you talk about the old soul. What did you say in the other life? You were explaining how it's probably been like in generations, right? So when I had this vision, oh man, I mean it went back so ancient. And this was kind of my question. This is why it's so weird that it was shown to me in this way.
Hmm.
It was almost like I wanted to know something about evil, right? Like
Mm,
not or I wanted to understand like something about not necessarily where evil comes or something associated with like humans, right? In general, right? So the way I was shown, it was almost like that, right? Like I was in this room and it was weird because I had like this person that looked almost like a nun next to me, right? And it was almost like I was doing a whole like I don't know. I had put this demon inside, like I had locked it in a closet almost, right? And there were all these other people in the room, and I was speaking in this ancient tongue, and everybody was like, "Oh wow, when did you learn to speak this?" Right? And then the demon inside was speaking like a little girl, like and then so
mm,
everybody was like, "Hey, like, what are you?" And it's funny now because how the narcissism is traced back to childhood, right? So
yep.
now I've connected all the dots, but it was speaking like a little girl, but then all of a sudden the voice changed and it was really like this deep entity. And everybody was like, what? And I was like, and then I grabbed this super ancient book and I was like, whatever you do, don't open that door. And I told everybody, don't. And then I was leaving on a journey, right? And when I woke up, while it was still fresh in my head, I was like, what language was I speaking? And they told me Sumerian. And I was like,
Mm.
what in the world? See, I got chills everywhere again. So I was like, and Sumerian is thought to be like the first language or the first. So they let me know that this entity in that world, there was no evil or good. It was just doing its job.
Yes.
This entity, so there's no limit to what it'll do. This entity of that goes back like ancient. So I guess before humans were around, before it's been, right? It exists, but it does its job. Like, and it's not gonna stop. You don't reason with it, I guess, in the entity that it is. I think as humans, everything we have the power to resist everything. We
Yes, we
allow
do.
all these entities are they're there waiting to do their job. Boom, boom, boom,
Yep.
boom, boom. Right? It's like someone being in a relationship and choosing a cheat, right? You allow that entity in. It's whispering like, "Hey,
Yep.
doesn't that person look
But it sounds like your own voice.
exactly?" And we allow, boom. And then
It's
once
on
we
it's
allow,
on your left side.
oh wow, okay. Is that usually where it'll come in through?
Yeah, angels come on the right, demons on the left. So that
Interesting.
whole like angel demon on shoulder that you see in cartoons back in the day, like Looney
Yeah.
Tunes style, Tom and Jerry, there's a lot of validity to it.
Yeah. So it's like, and that's why things like alcohol lower.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Oof, I got chills everywhere. Yeah, because
Yeah,
it
we're more
it
susceptible to
exactly.
receiving.
Exactly. And people could be like, no, I'm strong. I could, because in this human body, we're like, oh, I could hold my liquor, but it has nothing to do. It's almost
No, it
like,
lowers the vibration.
exactly. And so
Hmm.
with that lowering of the vibration, that's why people do dumb stuff with alcohol, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like, hey, when I used to drink and drive and I would run red lights and all this stuff, like, what made me do these stupid
Hmm.
things? Like, what in that moment is like, run the red light, like, yeah,
Yep.
that's a great idea. I
Yep.
could kill myself and others and all this stuff. Like, what in those moments? So when people think like, oh no, there's nothing, that's why it's so many things. People won't make those kind of decisions, right? Like
Yeah.
being unfaithful, this and that, and then every ripple effect from that one decision. But that's what I was shown to the depth. But it was funny that in this situation, the demon had to do with the narcissism, right? Such a and that they're always there. So I don't have to scare anybody, but that's what I
No,
was
I mean,
shown.
it's one example. I mean, demons aren't just tied to narcissism or always tied to
Yeah, yeah,
narcissism,
yeah.
but it's something that yeah, there's a common link there because again, it's lower vibration and it's feeding off of those lower vibrations, the negative emotions. And it feeds off of the life force energy of the person and breaks them down.
And that's one of the things when I was in a relationship dealing with something like this, I was shown a dream where it was dark and I was standing there and all of a sudden everything started getting drained from me. And
Yeah.
this person was there and I called out to them and they didn't come and help me and I went down and when I went down I woke up and I was like, wow, they just let me like. And the crazy thing in my whole life I've called out to 3 people. When I was young, because I was around the religion thing, I called out to Jesus when something was choking me, and bam, I snapped out of it, right? So it worked.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus, and bam, I woke up. After my brother passed away, I called out to him, right? When it was like whatever, the sleep paralysis or something choking me or
Mhm.
holding me down. And I yelled out to my brother, and bam, I woke up. This time, this was the third person I ever called out to, and they just were there, like looking at me as I just, and in the dream, well, when I came to, I thought, well, um, like, okay, they just wouldn't help me, but I didn't know there was something deeper to it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was a possibility that this thing was possibly connected to, you know what I mean? It was just,
Yeah.
that didn't click till later, right? Like, and And so that was a scary thing, right?
It can be. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, for me it was. It was very scary because
Yeah.
because
They like to scare us.
well, no, I'm saying in the way of
Got it.
nothing on the other side scares me, right? On the other side, but it was the fact that because in these human bodies, all our connections, right?
Yeah.
Like like that, right? Like thinking it's like that. Let's say you had a family member, right? A brother or sister, and you think like, oh, my brother, they would never ever turn their back on me. And then they turn their, let's say you're in a life and death situation, and they're just like, okay, go ahead. It almost felt like something like that. Like, oh,
Yeah.
so that's where the scary, oh, wow, like I didn't see that coming. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Even especially being intuitive, having being able to see things, medium, psych, all that stuff myself, that's what threw me for a loop. Like,
Yeah.
why didn't I see that coming? Like, that was the scary part. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So,
understand that. Makes
in,
sense.
yeah, yeah, in this reality. And just to go back a little, no, and like when I seen that demon, so then now it triggered all throughout my life. Whenever I connected with certain people, I would see a demon attached to it.
Mhm.
And now I get it. Why I see like that. For example, once when I was younger and I dealt with someone that had a drug problem, there was a demon attached to it.
Yeah.
Someone else with another thing, there was a demon attached to it. So they show me, I never realized what was happening till now that I seen like this narcissist demon. Yeah, since I was young, I was being shown like when I was connecting to people with these things attached, I never realized I was being shown the demon behind that.
Yeah.
And it just clicked, the light bulb just went out now. Like, I don't know why so long late, 20 plus years later or something. Now I realize what they were showing me all along. So,
Yeah, it's for me, I when I was younger, I wouldn't see the attachment, but I would see their eyes change and the
oh,
human. And some people might confuse that with a possession. It's just an overpowering energy. It's not exactly a possession. But my dad, when he would flip out, his eyes would change. And probably people can see that a lot with overt narcissists. There's just something in the eyes. There's like this switch that goes off and their eyes go dead. My mom would get that too, but not as severe as my dad. And then growing up, I think, when you say like not expecting something and when you feel like you should have been prepared because you're psychic, when I saw the same look in my brother's eyes and I recognized like he became my father and my
oh,
sister
wow.
became my mother. But I think it was more heartbreaking for my brother because he and I were closer in age, so we just did a lot more together growing up, and we protected each other a lot. Mine more so him because I'm older, but so to have seen that in him was so disappointing because
Mm,
ultimately it does come down to us. We have a choice of who we choose to be, how we choose to respond, how we choose to act. So I don't care who you are, you always have a choice. That is the one gift we all have is free will.
mm,
So we can never say like, oh, it was just so overpowering. I mean, yes, awareness helps. I mean, I wasn't aware what it was. I just knew it was evil.
mm.
It just took me a long time. And then when I started seeing them, I was just like, oh, okay, they kind of look like gremlins to me. And they're
Wow.
usually on someone's left shoulder.
Mm. Um, Athena left a comment said, some demons are our guides, are our teachers of the dark, angels like our teachers of the light. This is how I understand it. How would you feel about that?
Uh, I feel like I don't think I would call it a guide, but this is not to suggest that's not someone else's personal truth. But I do believe they serve to teach us. So yes, I could see why guide would be used. I guess for me, because I hold guide, I call myself a guide. I hold the word guide in light.
Yeah.
That's just why I don't connect to that word for it. But yeah, there's always something to learn there if we choose to.
Mm,
Uh, you know, Not everyone will make that choice. Not everyone sees it as light and dark because not everyone is connected in that way spiritually. Definitely no member of my family. of origin for sure. Like they're not gonna one day wake up and say they have a demon and they got to face it. But how interesting when people use the term they're battling their demons.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because there's truth to that, but usually they'll connect it to something like drug addiction or alcohol addiction or anything of that nature. But that's often the case. They are battling demons, literally
Yeah.
and figuratively.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. You know, I went through this whole journey, and that's why I think I had to understand things a little deeper because, for some reason, a lot of these entities that are called mythological show up to me, right? And
Mm,
I don't even know nothing, like, I don't know anything about them. So that's why I believe that they exist, right?
yeah. Hmm.
Because there's no reason for me to even be seeing them. Like, I never read or that I
Yep.
know or that I could remember reading about them until after they appear, right? Um, but one of them was this being called Oreshkigal. And do you know who that is,
No,
Oreshkigal?
I do not.
Watch. It's funny enough, see, in that one thing where it was like she's before I guess there was even a masculine devil or Satan or anything in the old Sumerian mythology, as they say, she was the goddess of the underworld. So she
Got
was
it.
the first ruler of the underworld. But I seen her in a vision and she invited me down there and I didn't feel negative energy.
Mm,
And I didn't know who she was. I was telling this lady at the yoga studio where I go, and man, it was like I know. See, she feels like a guide in human form because as I was going through all these things, every time I was like, "Oh, I just went through this," and she would tell me, "Oh, that sounds like Hecate," or "Oh,
yeah.
I went through this," and "Oh, that sounds like this," and I'm like, "What? Like how? Like you were putting my path at this time because all these things that I'm going through, you have all this knowledge." And she hadn't necessarily seen them, but she had learned about the signs that they show or all these things, right?
Mm, got it.
So she was very knowledgeable, right? I mean, she's very tapped in, but I think she told me like she hadn't necessarily had these interactions with them that I was having. But anyways, Oreshka go, it was like she invited me to see that world, right? To see the darkness, right? And so I see it differently. I know they're there, right? I know they exist. Now I see it like them doing their job, right? But the
Yeah.
same, I wouldn't call one of them because I was even taking down the rabbit hole of Solomon, who was in the Bible said to be the most knowledgeable person and this and that. In the Bible, it doesn't talk anything about at one point, right? He had control over the demons. So I didn't even know that the whole temple that was said, so you know that story that it
Yep.
was it
Yes.
was built by the demons and everything.
Hmm.
So I was like, what? So it even took me because of a vision I had. It took me down that rabbit hole, and I was like, what in the world? So see, you can see that they've always been there, right? There's an
Yes.
interaction between both, but it's almost like even him, he was duped for trusting, like, or being tricked, or however you want to put it. Trusting. I don't know if he
Yeah.
trusted necessarily, but he
Blind
was.
trust, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The demon was able to use the words to convince
Yes.
something, and then boom, Solomon. That was kind of his fall from grace at that point, right? Like, so the demons are very present. I don't think I'd be able to call one my guide personally, but I can see where someone might say, oh, they're my
Yeah.
guide.
Yeah. I
Let me see.
understand that too.
Athena also said, guide a person who advises or shows the way to others. All right. So I had to work with Goetia demons to spiritually wake up. My soul is married to the soul who is also known as Duke Dantalian, along with the other names who aren't demons. One soul can be many things, plus demons, same from Greek daemon. The universe requires balance of light and dark. Okay.
It does require balance. We are
Yeah.
on the planet of duality.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I get that. So now I get that.
No judgment. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
we're all on our own paths. It's,
Yeah, yeah.
I think because of how I see it, there's often a negative connotation because, um, I deal with a lot of trauma and abuse. So when there is that kind of attachment, there's a lot of negativity to it.
Absolutely. Well, and see, for me on my path, when see, I mean, my path is a little different because, I'm one of those that was shown. I don't know if we talked about it before, right? I was shown like how a lot of NDE people are shown, right? That the
Yeah.
pre-planning kind of thing, right? I was shown that, right? About my life in general. So in my life, there's been a lot of situations where they let the bad situation work for good, in other words,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Like, so in those instances, yeah, you could say I learned from those demons, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you could say, yeah, because of people I was dealing with, and I even saw right? I've seen them both in the physical and in the spirit realm, right? I've
Mhm.
seen them like literally appear in front of me, right? So those kind of things could be a little, wow, when I was younger, it was a little jarring, so to
I
speak,
would
right?
imagine so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, so in that way, I'm no judgment on my part as well, right? But for me, like, yeah, so it just depends on what someone means by it, right? Let me see what. Oh yeah, yeah. So that's what Athena had to say. I like the name too. I don't know if that's her real name, Athena, but
I
I
do
like.
too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a good name.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so where?
Wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like why in the movie, I think Clash of the Titans, she had the little owl, and the little owl's
Yep.
always
Yeah.
been.
She's connected to the owl. Yeah.
Yeah, when I first would go through my little journeys in the spirit world, the owl would always be flying over me. Like if it was my guide, right? Like if it was,
Hmm.
and see even the owl, for example, the owl has a lot of negative connotations because people that usually like to, for example, work in what people call like the dark arts, or maybe do a little things more. They use the owl, right? Because the owl,
Yeah, I guess I do.
yeah, because the owl can pierce through the veil, right, or something.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could be said for a lot of animals, cats,
Oh yeah, yeah,
crows, ravens.
absolutely.
Again, planet of duality,
Yeah, yeah.
one side or the other, and some have their feet dipped in each side, and yeah, so animals can play a role.
Absolutely. So with some of the clients that you've worked, like when you've seen these entities, because the same, like I've seen it like as a darkness as well. Like for example, when back to the
Yeah.
subject of like the narcissism, right? Um, and that like something that feeds, right? It's so what is the purpose then? Like when it's this narcissistic spirit, it just wants to drain as much life force as it can and move on to the next victim kind of thing, or how have you seen it?
Well, that's a really good question because I feel like I should also say I don't look for them. It's more of like when they show up, I'm like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So like I mentioned this client I had this week and I saw it connected to his dad. I always focus on how I'm helping the client I have, especially at present. So it's how is this affecting your energy? And there was a draining element and it was making him very tired
Mm,
and he was very disconnected from his own personal power. So I was more like, okay, let's help shield your energy a bit to at least get you back connected better to your personal power. It may or may not shed that energy. And this is where I think it's great to look at the fact that this is where they teach us. If it's still hanging around, there's something to learn about yourself. Why is it still hanging around? What is in your energy that's making you receptive to this?
mm,
And sometimes it could be a light, you know, dark light, there's a strong attraction. So, a lot of light workers are often under attack by these types of entities because they're seen very young. So it's often tried very hard to dull their light. That's why so many of us have really difficult childhoods. I mean, it's a miracle some of us survive.
mm.
And I think a lot of us identify with that kind of story, definitely myself. So I don't necessarily work on removing it if I see it connected to a client. I like to understand why it's there and what it's doing to them
Mm,
because then we get a better idea of, okay, how is this affecting your day-to-day life? And then to help that person get their power back. Because when you start to take your power back, they have less power over you or over your energy. And so it's really getting people back to themselves. I have this saying, I probably say this all the time. Once we understand ourselves is when we can go beyond ourselves.
mm, absolutely. And Athena said, just as a narcissist will take everything from someone and push them to find their deep inner strength, demons push us. Their job is to teach us the dark. I mean, I can't argue with that. Oh,
Yeah.
Sergio C. I was told that I attract lots of energy, and that's why I have trouble with health and life. Not sure how that works. Sergio C. How do you feel about
I
that?
would be looking at his solar plexus chakra. I'd also be looking at his root.
Hmm. At the yeah, I don't know. Yeah, yeah. So,
Because if you're attracting a lot, that means that the solar plexus is in like a very wide receptive mode. So you're probably pulling in stuff that isn't meant for you because of your sensitivity.
yeah.
And this usually happens with clairsentience and empaths.
Okay. Let me know if that made sense, Sergio. I think Sergio called in before, right? So I don't know if you want to call in and ask Chris another question, but let me know and I'll put the number in the chat. Um, yeah, okay. So when you attract lots of energy, a lot of times that has to do with the solar plexus.
That's the first thing I would look at because it's usually the case.
Mm,
I mean, everybody's energy is different, so I wouldn't say every single time, but most of the time,
okay. And
it's
that's
the
like
solar plexus.
so how he said he has trouble with health and life. So that
Yeah, it's also the aura too. The aura is very sticky, so that person would probably be attracting a lot to their aura and it just hangs out there. So, you know, there's a heavy weight that could come with that. So shedding that, I mean, I'd be putting myself in gold light all the time, just constantly envisioning my entire body filling with gold light and expanding that into my aura on a regular basis.
mm,
And that's just a like kind of a start, but it's getting to the emotional stuff too,
mm,
because the emotions are a direct link to how our body's responding.
mm. Absolute. Wow, when I dealt with the situation I went through, one of the situations I went through, I felt it was almost like I felt it in the heart. So my heart was telling me something wasn't right. It
Mm,
almost felt like the heart was just bleeding nonstop, even though everything seemed fine. Even when things were fine, my energy didn't. It something didn't feel right. Right? I was
mm,
like, why does it feel like? It almost made me think of like in the tarot, like the Three of Swords, with
yeah.
the heart and the three swords. So, but it even like cut open. It felt like my. So I was like, what is my heart trying like? Because it seems like everything's fine. But why is it like I've been like my heart's bleeding like nonstop? So why did it affect me in that place when I was dealing as opposed to like the solar plexus? Why was I feeling that emotion there?
Because it was hurting your heart.
Oh wow. Without even so my soul was already telling me, hey, something's not right here.
Yeah. It was
Even
hurting
though
your proverbial heart, not
oh,
your literal heart, but
yeah,
that's where
yeah.
it starts and that's where it then can continue to go and why we start
Mm,
to have ailments connected to areas where it started with an emotion or a thought. This is generalizing, but there's usually a path you could follow in that. So why is this happening in my heart? Let me reverse engineer it of what did I go through emotionally and what
mm,
programs have I accepted about myself?
mm. That makes sense. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Wow. Um, okay. Yeah, yeah. So if something's affecting you like that energetically, it can eventually cause you, like, let's say, to have a heart attack, literally, or stuff like that. If you keep feeling these,
Yeah,
or not
so
to that
heart
extent.
attacks, because the heart is so, I'll say complex,
Mm-hmm.
it usually is blockage.
Mm,
So looking at it from a spiritual perspective, where are you blocking love? Where are you blocking yourself? And that usually over time, that's what you see.
Mm,
Obviously, there's other things that go into that, but when you want to reverse engineer that stuff, so my dad actually at one point in his life had a heart attack,
oh wow.
and he needed a quintuple bypass.
Mm,
And if I've ever known anyone in my life to be very disconnected from his heart center, it'd be my father.
mm,
So there was certainly a correlation there.
wow.
But is this not to suggest that he didn't make poor choices in life? I mean, he was a smoker. He's an alcoholic. There's definitely things that weren't serving his body that certainly aided in this. So it's not just, oh, you manifested that with your feelings.
Mm,
It's not that simple, but it is one of the things you look at.
oh wow. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, yeah, because to me it was just like, yeah, it just didn't make sense, right? Like, but then yeah, it was almost like, something telling, well, like how you said, if you reverse engineer it, I was thinking like, why would your heart hurt? Because maybe without me seeing, there was some kind of betrayal to where the heart
Ooh,
was taking.
betrayal's a big one for
Yeah,
heart.
yeah.
Yeah,
So even
that
though I
one
was,
hurts.
yeah, so even though I wasn't aware, my spidey senses were picking up, uh-oh, something was just done.
Yeah.
They're not being honest, but
Yep.
the heart is feeling it
Yep.
energetically.
Betrayal, lies, that's all heart stuff
Oh, okay,
that we'll
even
feel.
lies and
Yeah.
okay,
So
all
we'll,
right.
we'll feel like these energetic hits.
Mm,
Yeah. Betrayal runs deep. That's why, like, that's literally a line like, oh, betrayal runs deep. And you don't forget that, because it literally runs deep in your energy.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's one where I'm like, you can't force forgiveness. You got to work your way to forgiveness. Because if
Mm,
you try and force forgiveness, it's just fake. There's nothing authentic about it. It might budge a little bit, but forgiveness, I think often, yes, it is absolutely beneficial, but we have to get to that place in a way that serves our energy.
wow. I'm not sure how much, so how much time did you have? Because I want to respect your time.
Yeah, I probably have like 20 more minutes.
Okay. All right. So if anyone has questions, let me see what did. Oh, I think they're having a conversation. Sergio and Athena are having a
I love
conversation.
it.
So,
Beautiful.
so let's see what else can we unpack about. So, like you said, you don't work on removing those entities. Do you ever make them aware of it? Like when you see it with the clients, you tell them,
Yeah,
"Hey,
I'll
this
make
is
them
what I'm
aware,
seeing."
but I don't usually call them demons. That freaks people out and they worry about
Yeah.
possession. So I'll say, like, depending on the person, sometimes I'll be like, I see some darkness, I see some
Mm,
dark energy. Sometimes I'll say, I see a dark entity. And then I kind of feel into the whys of it. Why is that here? Why is that showing up? Because like I said, I don't look for it. Like most of what I do is I read people's chakras. I'm looking for what's off in their energy system, their energy body, and I help give them the tools to heal. So it's really more if I'm looking and then I see darkness, then I'm like, okay, what is this?
mm,
Sometimes it's just a block, but if it's moving, it's probably an entity. And then I
mm.
feel into that more, and then I look for it, and then I'm like, yep, there it is.
Oh wow. Um, no, and like the same like you. Like I don't. I think I just end up seeing the things. Like I don't ever
Yeah,
look for. But you know what?
we don't want to look for
Yeah, yeah.
it.
Never, never. Um, you know what's funny is I tapped into that, recently, and it was, see, my whole head's lighting up right now. Like it's just like zzz. Um, yeah, it felt like my crown just like poof exploded open, right? As I'm
Yeah.
remembering this thing, I started seeing this vision of like, it was like that. Like if I was in this dark world, if it looked almost like a movie, right? And I seen these like entities, right? And the same to me, the word demon doesn't matter. You could call them dark entities or
Yeah,
just
you can call it whatever.
whatever you want to call them. But yeah, it was there. They were hanging out, like having a whole conversation. And I was like, can they see me? And something told me no. But it was like I was in this other realm of
Yeah.
darkness and these entities, almost like that. Like picture like a bunch of demons gathered around taking a smoke break. Like they were talking. I don't know why I was even shown that. Maybe just the to be aware of that, you know. But I mean, it's kind of like what came up here when I was telling you how I was shown just like, hey, they're doing their job. It's on
Hmm.
us, and that's why what Athena said made perfect sense about that. Yeah, they're tests that are available to us to pass. But I've seen, I guess I was shown the darkness of that. Like I was shown how
Yeah.
these things have no limit. So I was shown that. I was shown how these, unfortunately, when people see, like, I know I'm aware of it and I even get shown in the spirit world, but what about the person that isn't? So I was shown how these things could push someone to suicide. They could
Oh
push
yeah.
someone to, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
that's the part I was shown where
Yeah.
that's why, like, maybe I'd be hesitant personally of calling it a guy because I didn't see a limit to it. Where where something would push you to growth, it's almost like a parent pushing a kid into the water, but being ready to grab
Being
them.
ready to drown them, yeah, versus grab them. There's a
Yeah, yeah,
difference.
exactly. Where
Yeah.
to the way I was shown
Yeah.
of these things, that it's like, yeah, push you all the way and even hold
Yeah,
your
there's
head
no
down.
consciousness and there's no
Yeah,
compassion. So that's what
exactly.
makes it challenging. And I mean, I had one client that had an attachment, and I didn't see it at first because we didn't have a session yet.
Mm,
And I had, up until I met her, I had to cancel my first session with her because I got into an accident.
mm,
And so we had to reschedule. The next time I had something happen where my tooth cracked. And I was like, something's not right because in my career, I've never had to cancel an appointment.
wow.
And then the same client, I've had to cancel twice. And then she
Wow.
had stuff happen too. So then I looked for it and I
Mm,
found it. And I was
mm,
like, and I told her, I was like, I'm going to give you some stuff to help with this demon because it's been attached to you for a very long time. And uh and you know, I didn't even censor myself because I was so aware of it when I became aware of it. Because like I said, I wasn't looking for it. I never do, but I'm like that something's not right and this feels evil.
mm.
And I didn't feel my client was evil, even though I didn't really know her yet. But clearing that did a lot,
Wow.
and then we never had a cancel session again, and she's been doing incredible healing,
Mm,
incredible, but she definitely notices a difference, especially a lightness.
mm. Wow.
But same to the going back to the did she learn a lot from it? Of course,
Mm.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was just right now as you were saying all that, I was like, oh, because I know, you're a Scorpio, so you're like,
Good
Scorpios
memory.
are good with the
The
going.
dark, oh,
Yeah.
right. I'm like, no, why did I sign up for that one? Well, because when I first started coming into my gifts, because I'm a late bloomer in that regard, all
Mm,
my trauma muted my abilities. So, clearing a lot of my trauma is what opened me up. But at first, I was closed in my own way because I was terrified of what I was going to see. I didn't want to
mm.
be scared.
Yeah.
Um, but then going back to, my sovereignty and really kind of getting to that place was so important. So now I don't necessarily fear it. I don't always like it,
Mm,
because I think I've worked so hard to get to a peaceful place in my life, and I don't love for that to be disrupted. But that's the human element of me.
yeah.
Who wants to invite that in when they've had so much darkness in their lives? That's not my choice. But again, it was my process and I had to go to. So now, yeah, it's not so much the fear, maybe just like a little bit of a distaste. But I try to be as neutral as I can because neutrality is very helpful in those situations
Wow.
because they
Yeah.
like to try and scare us.
Absolutely. Let me see. Sergio was saying I had a strong falling out with my father, and that's where most of my health conditions spiraled out of control.
Yeah.
Also, around the same time, I started my new job where there are for sure good and bad. Entities that I have seen and recorded. Oh, wow.
Mm.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, they could definitely be in a work environment.
Mm,
You always look for patterns in those situations. Like, are there a lot of accidents? clumsiness, just negative behaviors. But again, look for the patterns. If you're kind of seeing the same thing with the same people, something might be up.
Mm.
This is not to say it's always a demon, but like I said, there's usually a pattern, and that makes it a little easier if you don't know how to look for them, don't quite want to look for them. But one of the best ways to shield yourself is just to see yourself in light. Golden light, I find to be really, really helpful, and asking for angel protection.
Mm.
Just bringing in angel love, bringing in angel support is very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, when I was dealing with one of my situations, this angel appeared, and so the person didn't see it, I did. And I feel like they were, yeah, and they appeared in the physical. I was like,
I
oh,
love when angels appear. It's beautiful. Like that
yeah.
feeling. It's like when people talk about near death experiences and they feel that overwhelming love. That's angel, like that's how angel energy feels to me when they show up.
Yeah, see, and even then I wasn't aware of what I was dealing with, and I felt broken in that moment. But
Mm.
on the outside, everything looked good, right? Everything looked good. But I think my heart was already paid. Something I was feeling drained. I was feeling, and the angel appeared, and then I was like, "What?" Like, and I looked like, "Wait, where?" Like, "Oh wow!" Like, at first I thought it was just a spirit, but yeah, it was very glowy. It was like all
Hmm.
white, very,
Yeah,
and I
that
was like,
ethereal look.
"Yeah, yeah, absolutely." And
Yeah.
it had like this smile. I was like,
Yeah.
why did this spirit just smile at me? Like, but that's why, after, like, yeah, a few people, I brought it up and they were like, oh yeah, just trying to let you know that everything is gonna be okay. But I didn't really even realize things were wrong to that level to understand that. No, and just going back on how you said about, it was funny, like last year, uh I think it was last year. It was weird. I had this dream where it was like this demon came to my door and it was trying to break it down,
Hmm.
and I just pushed the door and I said no. And then that's it. And then I
Yep.
woke up and I was like, oh wow. Well, I felt like I was like, that's new. Like, when was I didn't know I could do that. Like, it was very like, oh wow. Just
That's a
like that.
powerful
Like,
message.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
really teaching you your power.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
since I
no
think
is powerful.
and I think after that, see, I hadn't even got clicked that. Wow, yeah. No is a complete sentence, how they say,
It
huh?
is. It is. No, I do not accept this.
Yeah.
I am sovereign. I surround myself with love. All of that, when we are very firm in that, it really does create a protective barrier.
Mm.
But they like to try and scare you. Like they'll curse at you, yell at you, like try and snarl and do whatever yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was just like that simple. And then I was like, wow, okay. I didn't know I could do that. And then I felt, yeah, and then I felt a lot like I have no fear of those. Let me see. Sergio said, I never met these workers, but when I saw them or their spirit, I described them to my coworker. And he is the one that told me that I was describing these deceased individuals. Oh.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was funny because I went to this ceremony at I guess they use it as a yoga studio and everything, right? But I seen, like, we were all like, after the ceremony, everyone was kind of, because it was like a sound bowl healing slash
Mm,
ceremony, but
nice.
in the mirror, I looked at a man cross behind, and nobody else, I guess, saw him. But then after, I told my friend that was running the ceremony, and the owner of the place said that it was her dad. Her dad is always
Mm,
around,
that's
but
neat.
in that case, it wasn't. Do you ever, I'm sure we've probably talked about it, but do you ever get why? I mean, obviously her dad's around to be there for her, I think they had a good relationship and he passed when she was young. So in those cases, or what's the main thing you see when people hang around, to either help or they just have unfinished business, or
It depends. In those situations, like a parent to a child. They like watching them. They like looking out for them. It's just brings them joy. If there's unfinished business, there's an unrest in them.
oh,
So you'll kind of feel that. It's almost,
mm,
think of yourself when you have something you need to do,
Mm.
and there's like a yearning inside. So, and that could be part of it too, especially if a parent passed when the child was young. There could be that yearning, like of wanting to have grown up with them, type of thing. But it will always vary. There's such a such a variance when it comes to spirits and how they show up. But lately I'm not even doing mediumship right now. I've been focusing so much on the living
Mm.
that if the deceased show up, it's more of a surprise because
Oh, wow.
yeah, I think I just felt like this shift, and a lot of too what was happening for me is a lot of the when people were coming to me for mediumship reads, a lot of the people in spirit were dying in these awful ways.
Oh.
I was getting like a lot of suicides, and it was just getting really heavy, and I was like, okay, I need a little bit of a break. So
Mm.
um, and where I knew very quickly, like I had one client, she's just like, I'm hoping you could connect with someone. And then like right away, I just felt it. And I was like, is this person responsible for their passing? It was just kind of the kindest way I could say that. I was taught in my own mediumship development, don't ask someone, did this person kill themselves?
Oh.
Um, like
Yeah.
it doesn't deliver well, especially if the person wasn't aware. So it's just as gentle as you can. Would you say this person had some responsibility in their passing? It's
Mm.
kind of a little gentle way, but that, like I said, it just kept happening. I'm just like, yeah, Chris needs a break. Like talking to talking about myself in third person, where I'm like, yeah, no, she needs a break. So, yeah, lately I've been focusing on just like energy reads and helping people heal their energy body.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, with the little time we have left, would you like me to be a guinea pig and see if you could tap into my chakras? Just
Yeah,
so,
sure,
I
sure.
mean, if you
Let's
want
do
it, you
it.
don't have to. Don't
Yeah,
feel.
I'll do it. I'll do it. Okay, your throat's already active because we're in interview mode, but so I'll have to just kind of like put that aside. I know your third eye is very open. Your crown is very open. Um, your solar plex shifts. So
Mm.
it will go from being very open to not so much. Um, I say open, but it's more of like how the wheel is spinning, but like it'll just look wider to me. So, you actually, interestingly enough, you guard yourself best via your solar plexus. Your heart is like a secondary guard.
Mm.
So you will guard yourself utilizing your intuition and then guarding that chakra.
No.
Uh, the heart's pretty strong, but really well protected by the solar plexus. I've never actually seen this, so that's really neat. So you are, which tells me one, you're in touch with your personal power, unless someone like threatens that. The only one that could threaten that would be a female that can take advantage of you. So just be aware of that
Yeah.
because that's a recycled wound in this
Mm.
lifetime. Because you'll be very trusting and you
Mm.
want to be trusting.
Yeah.
Um, okay, that's the back and forth energy I'm getting. So
Okay.
it's like you'll be so intuitive, so in link, so in line, and then all of a sudden someone like pulls the rug out from under you and you're like, who is this person? Um, so that's that's more, yeah, that's actually interesting because that's usually that'll deal with narcissism because there's like two sides. So you'll still see that good side of them, that side of them that's like not wounded, the like all the stuff in the beginning. And then it's like you don't want to see the other stuff. So you'll try to see past it and you'll try to
Mm.
ignore it. And I would say don't ignore it because the red flags become pretty bright and you'll still kind of ignore it. So look, when you see that first red flag, pull back. Um, and not necessarily out of the relationship, but in yourself,
Mm.
because there's some sort of reflection that could happen there for you for that relationship. Like, why did that happen? What do I want to do about it? Am I going to allow it? That kind of stuff. Um, your sacral's right now a little blocked. Not not terrible, but like this would tell me you're kind of inconsistent in your creativity. So like some days you're probably like really inspired, and other days it's just like stagnant, where it's like, I don't even know what I want to do. Not quite apathetic, but there'll be times like you'll feel a little lazy, like you should be doing more, but it's the chakra that just needs a little more oomph, I would say. And then your roots, kind of a back and forth one as well. This happens with a lot of spiritual people too. So like, our energy gets easily disrupted and because we're so sensitive, so it could affect how we're grounded. So you will probably not always feel when you're not grounded until you start to show the symptoms of like,
Mm,
oh, I feel like garbage. Not necessarily sick, but just kind of disconnected from yourself.
mm,
And that's just not being grounded. This will also feed off of that sacral block because when you're not really connected to that chakra and the creativity of it, it kind of then calms down your root where you're not going to feel as grounded.
mm,
So they kind of like right now have a bit of a link where they're supporting one another in this back and forth way, which is fine. But I would say you just kind of want to work with them separately. So, like, have very intentional grounding practices and have very intentional sacral chakra kind of. You would do really well with sound. So,
mm,
like going on YouTube and looking for like sound bowls for the sacral chakra, like, would very much help. And because the sacral chakra is connected to water, water will be very helpful, also very grounding. So like
mm.
detox baths, go, dip your feet in ocean, lake, whatever, that kind of stuff. Those are helpful.
Mm, thank you. All that made sense. It all made sense. It was funny because when I went to that thing, the ceremony, like after everyone pulled the card, but
Mm.
like right, we all had a card, and so everyone was sharing. But I was the only male in a room of there was 21 females. I was the
I love
only
it.
male.
There you go.
And I've noticed this has happened to me a lot of times. One person told me they were like, "Oh, you're an anchor," like this is
I could see that. Yeah.
yeah. So but out of all things, the card I pulled, it was the sacral chakra, but on the card it said sexual energy. So everyone started laughing when because we were sharing reading it out loud, right? So I was
Yep.
like, but yeah, it makes sense because the I know it's tied into creativity too.
Yeah, I
Oh.
usually look for the creativity. Sexual energy is it will go along with the creativity. So yours would be like that. There's going to be times it feels stifled. There's going to be time it's like really like you're very connected to it. So if you see that back and forth in you on sexual activity, on creativity, that tells you there's a disruption in that chakra.
Ah.
And same with women will especially see this in hormones. So
Mm,
I just had a client yesterday that and I always have to throw out the disclaimer, I am not a medical professional. I am not in any way licensed to make any kind of medical diagnoses. I said, but if you haven't already gotten your hormones checked, I recommend doing that. And she just put her arms up and she's like, thank you so much for saying this. My doctor keeps saying it's not happening, and I just know deep down it is. And I was
mm,
like, well, your chakras say it. So
mm.
you may want to find another opinion.
Absolutely. Wow. No, no, thank you so much.
Of course.
Um,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess, yeah, that's it. Thank you, Athena. Thank you, Sergio, for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you.
No, no, this was great. I really appreciate it. I love our conversations.
Me
Um,
too.
yeah, yeah, and I'll have all of Chris's links underneath the video, right? You could see the video we already did, the interview. I think it was episode 96. We've done a live before. This is our second live, our third video, and yeah, I
Yeah.
enjoyed it just as much as, if not more,
Yeah, it's
than the
great.
other.
Yeah, we have great chats. I appreciate it.
So thank you everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off this YouTube thing. Oh, D Joseph said peace. Peace, Joseph or D Joseph. Okay. I'll see you. Let me see. How do you even